Okay, I got 9 o'clock. Let's get started. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining in. This is our next monthly installment of ACAP updates. We have a little bit of updates for you today. We can go through a couple different things, but I think Doug, I don't want to put you on the spot, Doug, but if you have anything you want to cover before we dive in.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. Good morning, everyone. Doug Wolfgang here, but really good to see so many people on the call, and look forward to the updates that Justin and Eric will be providing today. It's really exciting. I think we're in a good place to get this thing started. And as we see these delegation agreements come back, and I think we have the majority of them back at this point, it just makes it real that we're at the point now where we're ready to, to get the funding out and to see the practices start to be installed. So I just really look forward to working with you on this and appreciate your attendance today. Thanks, Justin.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. So just a basic outline, what we're going to go over today. We'll go over some delegation agreement updates. I had a call with the Ethics Commission. I'll give you a brief update on that. The Commission finalized a setback policy at their last meeting. We can go over that in detail. Eric has a good presentation. We've been getting a lot of questions on applications, ranking forms, and some other forms we've been putting out. So Eric will go over those in detail. Then we'll have some time for question and answer there at the end. And also, we'd like to get your feedback on a couple different points. So that's the plan for today. So as of February 2nd, when I did this presentation, we had 48 of the agreement signed. I think 1 or 2 more have rolled in since then. So we're probably close to 50 at this point, if not more. So that's awesome. Appreciate everyone getting those to us very quickly. Several of those have been signed by the commission and legal, and they're waiting on the comptrollers right now. So once we get approval from comptrollers and we get approval to advance the money, once all that stuff comes in, then we'll be sending out your advance payments. So hopefully we'll get those payments out soon for the ones that are through the process. And it normally takes a couple weeks for the money to go through the system and get actually to your door. So if anybody, once we start processing those payments, I'll let the districts know, like, hey, we processed these, your payment, you can expect it coming. And then after that, we'll see where we're at and do some more updates from there. We've been getting a couple questions rolling in about ethics, about having farmers on like quality assurance boards or local boards or district boards, and like those farmers then applying for funds for the same program they're either making policy for or voting on policy for those funds. So Karen Books and I met with the Ethics Commission, discussed a variety of topics, really. At the end of the day, we wanted to know, can farmers be on district boards and make policies for funds that they may likely be applying for? Can they be on the local quality assurance board or whatever local quality board that's ranking applications? Essentially, they said yes, they can do that. But again, they have to avoid conflicts of interest. And I think at this point, everyone is pretty aware of what conflict of interests are, but we wanted to give them time to go over that in detail with you guys. So I think at the next meeting, they're going to come and give us a good presentation on how to avoid conflict of interest, what those farmers can do, what they can't do. And that way you can ask them questions directly and have them on that call. So I look forward to that. Hopefully that'll be a good information session for everyone and keep everybody out of trouble. The setback discussion, which we've been talking about frequently, we took it to the commission at the last commission meeting, and at that meeting, the commission opted to approve our draft policy that we went over with with the advisory committee. We went back and forth with it several times to finally get what we felt was a good setback policy. So essentially what the commission passed was our draft policy. So basically when a buffer is included in the plan, in any version of a plan, any applicant receiving funding for what we call the Cadillac BMPs, so animal waste storage or heavy use areas, they have to, as a condition of their agreement, agree to install and maintain an average of 35 feet setback from streams and other water bodies. So, we will get you this policy so you have it. It doesn't become effective until January 1st of 24, and that's for any contracts signed after that date. So once if you sign a contract on January 2nd, 2024 for a project that has buffers in their plan and they're getting the animal waste storage BMPs, they have to do that average of 35 feet. So if you guys have any questions about this, by all means, let us know, but we'll get you this policy so you have it. And again, the commission felt that they thought this was a good policy. They thought it was a good compromise, but they wanted to give a little bit of time to get things rolling before they enacted this policy. So that's why they went with that 24 deadline. At this point, I'll turn it over to Eric and he can go through the forms.
All right, thanks a lot, Justin. Like Justin said earlier, we've had some questions roll in about the application and the ranking forms. Can we change them? Can we not change them? So we thought it'd be a good idea to go through some of these documents that we do have that we sent out to you guys. Hopefully we can answer a lot of questions here for you guys. So we're going to go over the application ranking form, the grantee and agreement and land concurrence form, and agreement amendment. So first, we got to look at the enabling legislation language. This is in the enabling legislation, and we must follow these guidelines set forth by the legislators. So the enabling legislation states that at a minimum, applications shall include the location of the project, the description of the project, including the plan BMPs, if applicable, the amount of sources of funding available, that could be EQIP, any other sources such as CAP or anything like that. The total cost of the project must be included, and any other information as required by you, the Conservation District, or us, the Commission. So that's what has to be in the application in one form or another. And also, if you look at the enabling legislation, we have a certain criteria that we got to follow as well. So Justin, if you want to slip to the next one there. So the enabling legislation also states that the Commission or Conservation District shall give priority to complete applications, and the following criteria must be considered. So we have to make sure that the project meets the goals of a WIP or county action plan. If applicable, the ag operation must have a plan, but the development of such plans should be included in the application if not yet developed. So what that means is if there's no plans or anything that the operation has, yes, they can be funded, but that has to be part of the application along with the BMPs that's in that application or that plan. So that might give you a little bit of clarity on that. The project that implements the BMPs should be included in the plan. Priority is given to the BMPs that reduce and control nitrogen, phosphorus, or sediment. The ag operations with the AC shall implement the BMPs necessary to abate stormwater runoff, loss of sediments, nutrients, other pollutants from ACA. The proximity of surface waters, public drinking water sources such as karst geology with underground drainage systems or sinkholes. And the project must meet the design and construction standards by the Commission and any other criteria considered by the Conservation District as applicable and approved by the Commission. So that that is what the enabling legislation states. That's what has to be in the application and or ranking form. So those two forms, the application and the ranking form, they sort of go hand in hand. It would be good for us to have an application across the board. So Justin, if you want to go to the next slide there. So in discussions with the advisory work group and everything like that, we came up with an application form. We tried to incorporate all the things that the enabling legislation required us to do. Again, it's the two forms that we're talking about. We try to marry them as close as possible. So we've had a lot of questions on the karst geology, and that's in the application. We've had some districts say, hey, does that really need to be in the application? Can it be in the ranking form? So that's sort of why you see that question there. Does it really have to be in the application? Maybe not. We put that in there just to give the districts notice that, hey, there's karst geology on here. We gotta consider that, and we gotta look forward. So that's why that question's there. It doesn't really have to be there as long as it's addressed in the application or the scoring or the ranking form. We will be okay with that. The application here, you guys can add stuff as the enabling legislation stated. You guys can add stuff to the application, but like I said before, we would try to keep this application as universal as possible. But I understand that sometimes that's not possible because there's different things and different priorities that the districts have. So if you want to change it, reach out to us. Let us know if you want to change the application. But like I said, we want to try to keep this as uniform as possible. It is on our website. People are looking at it. Farmers, anybody can look at that or anything. Carl Gosselin, you got your hand up?
Yeah, so just clarify again, Eric, you're saying a farmer makes an application, but he doesn't have any plans. As long as the part of the application is to develop plans, he can apply and we can approve him?
Yep. Yeah. As long as the plan and the BMPs are all included in that one application, yes.
Okay.
That's the way we prefer it. We would prefer everything to be in the one application and not split applications.
Okay.
Do we have some other questions in the chat there?
Yeah, let's see. I believe Ian is asking, for operations that have multiple tracts of land, can each tract be created or be treated as a separate operation contract? If a crop field is separate from the main operation, do we need to be sure that the main operation has a manure management, nutrient management plan? Or are we looking at this tract only if that is all they are applying for?
That's a good question. I would say we probably look at it tract for tract. But if we do know that there's some issues on the main farm that need to be taken care of, I would hope the district would look at that and try to fix those problems as well. But right now, it might be a little bit more discussion that we would have personally between me and the district or the State Conservation Commission and the district.
Good question, Ian. Erica also asks, how does it work if the person doesn't have a cost estimate?
Well, that's part of the application, part of the enabling legislation, that there should be a cost estimate included in the application. So if there's not a cost estimate, I would reach out to the farmer and say, hey, we need some kind of estimate. Usually you get a cost estimate if you have an I&E. So that should be there.
I believe that's it in the chat, Eric.
Okay.
Now,
All right. Justin, you want to go to the ranking form? Next slide. All right, so this is the ranking form. I sent this out to you guys really early. It does have some some issues with it, but you can make this ranking form whatever you want. But like I said, we do have some questions that we need to have in the ranking forms. The questions you see on the left side there, and it might be a little hard for you to see, which is a state, should have been the state tab that I sent out to you guys. Those are the questions we want to have in there in one form or another. I have some people and some districts send in some other ranking forms that they want to use. Everything looks good the way they set it up. I'll put Katie Doster on the spot. She sent me in a very good ranking form. I really like how it was set up. Katie, do you mind if I show that? If I can pull it up here real quick.
No, that's fine.
Yeah. Second here. All right, can everybody see that?
Yeah, it's up on my screen, Eric.
Okay. So what I really like about this is Lebanon County came up with some eligibility questions, and they put that right up front. Will the existing animal concentration area be addressed? Yes, proceed with scoring sheet. NA, proceed with scoring sheet, and no, it's ineligible for ACAP funding. And I really like that. You guys, if you want to come up with your own kind of eligibility questions or anything like that and make them ineligible right away, that's fine. We don't have a problem with that. And I'm sure Lebanon County has a certain way they want to look at things, but they came up with their own questions, and a lot of their questions incorporate the ones that were in the enabling legislation, which I really like how this is. It's one page. It's pretty simple. It's not two pages that work together. So if you guys want to use your own ranking form, that's fine. I sent out that template to use for you guys, and if you want to use it, that's fine too. But we do ask that the questions that are in the enabling legislation are in that. So thanks, Katie, for sending this in. All right.
Eric, we have some other questions in the chat, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Through those. So John from Cambria County is asking when and if the applicant needs to hire an engineer. Are those costs part of the application, and do we have to limit payment for those costs to the 14% technical assistance limit?
I can take a shot at this one, Eric, if you want me to.
Yeah, go ahead.
So John, I think there's two ways you can pay for engineering. If you have engineering in the contract and you're using what we would call like project funds, that's limited to 10% of the contract amount. If you want to do engineering over and above that or outside of a contract, then yeah, that 14% of your funds can be used, right, for technical assistance. So that 14% is what the district gets of their allocation for technical assistance. So yeah, you could use some of that funds for engineering, or if you include it in the contract, you're limited to 10% of the contract for engineering. I think that answers that. If not, let me know.
Yeah, that was good. Thank you, Justin. John, if you need any follow-up with that, just let us know. Chris Phillips is asking, back to the buffer requirement, can you clarify what is required prior to 1/1/24? Go ahead.
So, yeah, that's a great question, Chris. So the buffer policy becomes effective 1/1/24. So there is no buffer requirement prior to that. So after 1/1/24 is when that policy becomes official. So
The
the answer would be nothing.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, yeah, that's good. Thanks, Joe. The only thing I'd add to that is NRCS has laid out some incentives for establishing setbacks and buffers, and there may be opportunities there that you'd want to share with the producer, just encouraging them to consider that voluntarily, until that point. But we can provide that information to you, but there's some incentive payments that could help to sweeten that deal if the landowner is interested. And we would certainly encourage them to consider it.
Yep, and looks like Michelle asked if we can share Katie's ranking form. As long as Katie's okay with that, yeah, we can share it with everyone.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Awesome, thank you. Eric, you want me to share that presentation again?
Yeah, that's fine. So like I said before, the application and ranking form sort of go hand in hand as long as we're meeting both the requirements of the enabling legislation and the questions that we have laid out at the state. You can sort of make the ranking form your own, and you can add stuff to the application. Like I said, we'd like to keep one universal application, but we understand that there may be some changes that the district will want to do. And if you want to make some changes, I would send it to us and see if it's all right with us. So, all right, we'll go on to the grantee district agreement. So the grantee district agreement that has been sent to legal. Legal is okay with all the language that's in that and the requirements that we have laid out in the conditions, the general provisions and the project conditions. This is a pretty simple form. It's a 2-pager, and the only thing that actually came about when we was going through legal is the signatures down at the bottom. We have landowner signatures, the operator signatures, and legal brought to our attention that sometimes there's operators putting in BMPs on running ground, and there may be multiple landowners that need to sign off on that. So they are indicating to us that it might be good for us to put a landowner concurrence form together, which you'll see on the next slide. So this is an example of what NRCS has as a landowner concurrence. What this is, it allows all the landowners to be able to put their names on it and sign off. I believe NRCS requires every single landowner to sign off on it, but we're trying to get with legal to try to figure out what all we want to make applicable to this, whether we need to have all landowners sign off on it in order for the project to go forward. So we're trying to work through some kinks that with legal right now on this. Did want to bring this up to you guys to make you guys aware that we may need some signatures on all landowners if there's multiple landowners where BMPs are going on where the operator wants to put in the BMPs. So that's that. Going along with the grantee district agreement is an agreement amendment. We do run into some cases now and then where whether the project, we have some overruns with the project, or if a landowner decides they don't want to put in a certain BMP or not, we do have to amend that agreement. So we came up with this agreement amendment. This will sign off and state the reasons why we're having an amendment, and we have to get signatures on that. Are there any questions on any of that? No.
I don't see
We'll
anything
move.
coming in, Eric, so.
All right, we'll move forward then.
All right, well, I think this is where I take over. At this point, we had a section here for open question and answer. So you guys want to start either putting them in the chat or feel free to unmute and ask away. We do have another slide we can cover in the meantime. And then we can come back to questions in a little bit if you'd like, or if anybody has a question ready. Here we go. Excellent. Is adding on to an existing structure eligible? Adding a roof over an existing heavy use area or expanding the size of a heavy use area to address an increase in animals? It's a good question. I'm gonna say I think that sounds eligible. Eric, what's your thought?
Yeah, I think it would be eligible as long as there's a resource concern. We're taking care of that resource concern.
Yep, I agree. Sandy, when will you be sending out the list of approved BMPs with their length of maintenance? I believe we sent the list of BMPs out already, but I don't know. Eric, did that include a length of maintenance in that form?
I'm not sure if it did, but I would refer to the NRCS eFOTOG, and their standards for most of those, because that's usually where we pulled it. So whatever's in their maintenance for that whatever in BMP would be right with that.
And Sandy, if you need that BMP list again, send me an email. I'll get it out to you. Riley, can ACAP pay for perimeter fencing? This came up before, and the answer is yes, as long as they're addressing a resource concern with that fencing, right? So it's got to tie back to, you know, addressing that sediment, nitrogen, phosphorus. It's got to address that. So as long as you're addressing that with perimeter fencing, yes. But I know NRCS ran into some issues with that. Where it was being abused. It was more of like neighbors who didn't like each other and some other issues with perimeter fencing. It wasn't really being used for resource concerns, but if you stick to that resource concern, then yes, it's eligible. Adam, can we get technical assistance from the Dirt and Gravel Center for farm access lane projects? Ooh, that's a great question. I would probably refer you to Steve on that. We don't have like a way of paying them to do that. I would assume it can like cross over and Steve would be okay with allowing them to do that, but I don't know. I'll follow up with Steve Blozer and find out for sure. There may be a situation where that would work out. So good question. Once we receive our money, will the SEC have to sign off or approve anything, or can we run with what has been set forth? I don't know of anything. The only thing we may need yet, and it depends on the comptrollers, there's a form to advance money. Sometimes you have to fill it out, sometimes we don't. So we're still waiting to hear, but that's just for you to sign and get back to us. I don't think of anything we have to approve. Eric, is there anything I'm missing?
The only thing that we would want to look at is projects over $500,000.
Yeah.
Unless they set a different precedent or under that. So that's the only thing I can think of.
Yep, good catch.
Eric asked about a list of BMPs.
Erica, and yeah, that was in the Eric sent an email out last week maybe with a whole bunch of documents in it. It's in that. But I'll get it. I see I'm getting some more emails rolling in about it. So we can send it out again, make sure everyone gets it. Okay, can we propose additions to the landowner form? There's a statement on the Growing Greener and Landowner Grant Agreement that states the landowner will not undertake any action on the land under the landowner's control, which tends to defeat the purposes of the grant. We have found this to be useful. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Eric, we should make sure to include something along those lines on that form. Carl, will the landowner concurrence agreement only needed if there are multiple landowners? I don't believe so. I think that's only if there's a bunch of landowners. If there's only one and they sign the application, I think you're good. if we need an on-site technical assistant, like for project eligibility, who should we contact? You can contact us for now, Eric or me or Eric. We do have 4 regional jobs opening up right now. I think they're still open. Once those are on board, we'll get more regional contact information out to you. And, once we get the center staffed, they can help with that as well. But for now, contact me and Eric. We'll make sure to get you what you need. Would an improved field entranceway similar to a rock construction entrance be eligible BMP? Access road is on the BMP list on the webpage, but we're looking at entrance exits to a roadway. A good question. We haven't really talked about that. It sounds like it would be like an access road improvement. Eric, do you know what he means by rock construction entrance?
Yeah, I know what a rock construction entrance is. I don't know if there's any BMPs out there that we could look at, any standards or anything like that. I'm sure there's standards somewhere. I don't know if DEP would have that. I think DEP might have come up with those.
Yeah, there's one in the
standards.
ENS manual that covers that. So yeah, I
mean,
think again, as you're addressing that resource concern, it sounds eligible to me.
Just asked when we expect the first funds to be sent to districts. We've just been talking about this week, so.
That's a great question. I would guess by the end of the month, but again, it's dependent a lot on comptrollers and how long it takes them to get back to us and how long it takes them to process the payment. So, March would be awesome, but it's probably earlier than what's going to actually happen, if I had to guess. But that's a complete guess.
Yeah, but don't let that stop you from signing applications and stuff like that, especially if you signed your delegation agreement. Go ahead, sign those applications and get everything in the works, because that's going to take time. And once you're ready to start your project and everything like that, we should be able to get you the money in hand.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll certainly work on our end to expedite it with the comptroller if we can.
Yep, absolutely. It seems to complete the application, we should have an I&E completed to identify costs and provide a site plan. Since this is before the contract, any suggestions on how to fund this? It's a good question.
I mean, it would all be reimbursable. I mean, as long as the farmer can get those cover those upfront costs. I don't think, it depends on who does the I&E. If the NRCS is doing I&E, it's not going to cost anything. If the conservation district's able to do that I&E, they won't cost anything. But if they get a private engineer or anything like that, they can recover those costs.
Yeah, and you can use some of your, if you have enough funding available in your 14% technical assistance funds, you can use some of that to pay for it as well, or some of your administrative money that can go to that. Or yeah, like Eric said, reimburse it with the contract. Okay, next question.
Yeah.
Am I correct that if a farmer needs to pay an engineer for design, they have to first have the design and cost estimate completed by that engineer? Then the farmer would apply to ACAP, and if that is awarded, the CV can reimburse 10% from the ACAP project funding.
This is Erin who sent the question, and I was essentially getting at the, what was right before me in the chat. I think we sent at the exact same time, is that the farmer has to, it sounds like the farmer has to front the cost to have the design done, because you need that cost estimate in the application. But that's prohibitive sometimes if your farmer isn't, doesn't have that money. And I'm wondering what Trevor was asking as well.
Like dirt and gravel roads, we've run into the same situation. And it's nice to have a full design and have a full cost estimate, like based off of that design going into the contract, but that's not always feasible. There are ways of estimating cost without a full engineered plan. I don't know how often you guys would get into that in the ag side, but you can come up with, and come up with a decent estimate of cost before you get into it. And then if you have to amend it later, then you can amend it down the road to add more money. But really, it's just the application needs an estimate of the cost. So you don't need a full engineered design to do that. Granted, it's nice to have that full design going into it, but it's not necessary.
Aaron, to ease some of your anxiety about that, a lot of times if they're working with a private engineer such as a Team Ag or Red Barn or any other engineer, there is funding out there for planning with several different groups. I think Penn Ag might have had something at some time to help out with planning. So there is some other avenues that they might be able to get some funding for that planning.
Thank you.
Okay, can we use the district's technical assistance funds to contract with a local engineering firm for engineering assistance? Yes, that's an easy one. I can handle that. We had the question if high tunnels would qualify for ACAP. Yeah, this came up earlier before, and again, there's got to be a way of addressing a resource concern. And if you have a high tunnel project that you think would address a resource concern, by all means, send it to us and we'll take a look at it. So the answer is kind of no at this point, unless there's some weird situation out there where it would help address resource issues. Then by all means, we'll look at it. Have districts with signed agreements started promoting the program, and if so, have pamphlets been created that other districts can utilize rather than recreating the wheel? For consistency purposes, a standard promotional handout would be appreciated. I think we were working on one too, Eric, through our press office.
Yep.
But I think, did that one cover all programs, not just ACAP?
Yeah, that covered EQIP, all the state, some of the state. It doesn't cover all the programs. It covers the majority that majority of farmers would use.
Yeah, that's a good idea. If anybody has one, can you send them to us if you're putting anything out there, and we'll definitely get one together too. That's something we should have. So, thanks, Jess. Northampton County owns multiple tracts that they lease to operators. If dirt and gravel could be used for access road improvements, could the engineering costs for road improvements be eligible for funding through ACAP? If it's an ag operation, I think the county would be an eligible applicant if they own, if they own an ag operation and there's a resource concern from that road. I could see it being eligible. Doug, Eric, any input there?
Totally agree. Absolutely.
Is there a limit? Is there a limit the amendment amount? I think what you're saying is, do we cap the amendment amount? We did not put a cap on the amendment amount. I don't think we need to at this point. If it becomes an issue down the road, we'll look at it. But for now, we're not putting a limit on that. So no. Since we're encouraged to move forward with contracting before we actually receive funds, are we to use the draft forms? I think those forms are final at this point. The only one we need to finalize yet is that landowner form, the landowner assignment form. Is that right, Eric? I think the rest of them are covered.
Yeah,
John's covered
yeah.
legal's comments.
Yeah,
So we'll send them out to you again with the next mailing. We'll get all the forms out to everybody. Sandy, am I correct that ACAP does not fund implementation of forest BMPs? We have a landowner ask us, and I've read the definition of ag operation, and they question it meant when it mentioned crops. Trees are crops in some programs. I don't know that we've hashed this out yet. Eric, what are your thoughts? Doug, you guys have an opinion?
I'll defer to Eric, but I think we should look into this one. I wouldn't want to say no that we wouldn't fund something related to forest
Right.
PMP. And, you know, most farms have woodlots and woodlot management is part of the overall farm management plan. So I think we need to look at that a little bit closer, but Eric, go ahead, whatever your thoughts
Yeah,
are.
I mean, we always got to go back to the enabling legislation. I mean, does it reduce nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment? And that's things we got to look at. And it does state certain certain plans that have to be. That's a conservation plan, ag E&S plan, manure management plan, and nutrient management plan. So, it's a possibility. Right now, I'm not quite sure about forest BMPs. Never really dove into it too much, but that's something we can take a look
Yeah.
at.
Sandy, if
definitely
you want to
look
have an
into that.
offline conversation, we'd love to have that talk and maybe dive into it a little deeper. All right, that's great. That was a great list of questions. I'll move on. You can keep asking away. I'll move on to my last slide here. We're going to ask for a little bit of feedback. So I assume everybody would like to keep these calls going after. I think March was the last one we had scheduled. Do we want to keep them going, or is it a time? I think maybe this would be a good time to add all staff. I know some districts have been inviting other staff to them, but I don't want to label them district manager calls and then have people think they can't join. So you think it's time to bump this out to all staff? Any input? Yes, from Josh. Yes. Okay. Yeah, I agree. All right, we'll just change the titles going forward from manager calls, and if you have staff that want to be on, I know Amy's been working on an email list to try to get emails from everybody. So by all means, if your tech or somebody isn't added to these calls, by all means, add them, forward it on to them, and we'll continue to develop that. What type of training do you guys need immediately? The center is looking at putting together trainings. What exact trainings do you guys need? Is there anything we can have that center focus on in the short term to get training that you need locally? Feel free to speak up, or you can email me later if nobody wants to mention anything. But
hey, Justin, I would just go with technical assistance. Not shocking, but I was told by our area DC today this morning already that NRCS is not going to be helping with just sole ACAP projects, at least in our county.
okay. Yep,
So we
can
already
do that.
have a plan in place to fund the center in the short term. We're amending our master agreement with Penn State to try to get some funds flowing so we can get trainings and job approvals for this spring. So we'll definitely ramp that up and hoping to have the center structured and in place with the standalone contract by July or thereafter. So definitely appreciate the concerns with technical assistance.
Yeah, that'd be good, Doug. Thank you.
Looks like bidding is a concern. Yep, we will definitely, once we have that finalized. And just a quick update, we met with legal yesterday. We're submitting, hopefully soon, we're submitting our waiver for the bidding process from Department of General Services. And they said they would get that back to us in under a week. So hopefully here before the end of next week, we'll have a bidding thing firmed up, and then we can put a training together on bidding. So great point. We'll cover that.
Jason Winey has a question in the chat, if that's okay. You
Oh,
guys,
yeah,
you can
do
maybe
this one.
address that one. Yes, so he says everything so far says to mirror dirt and gravel roads. Dirt and gravel road program has county policies and procedures that are reviewed and approved by the commission. These policies dictate the board makeup, application timing, county specific ranking, etc. Do we need to create and submit a similar county program? If so, is there a template for what that program should contain?
Yeah, you definitely need a local policy. I think we have one drafted up. Eric, did we do that? I don't remember. We had some base forms that we were using as a draft local policy, but yeah, you do have to have a local policy. Those don't have to be reviewed and approved by us unless you want us to look at them. We're more than welcome to do that. And as QAQCs become a thing, we'll definitely take a look at local policies and help you tweak them if needed. But for now, yes, draft a policy, and we will get you a form policy if we don't have one yet. That's a good point. We need to do that. See, Tom said on conflict of interest, would there be any conflict of interest by having an NRCS rep on the advisory board? In relation to ranking applications, they have an equip element versus those that do not. You know, conflict of interest is out of my specialty realm, but from our discussion with them, it didn't sound like that would be an issue. Maybe that's a question we can ask next month on that call, just to be sure. I don't see it being an issue.
Yeah, we'll ask, but I don't see that being an issue. I mean, there's so much overlap with farming community, NRCS, and making up these committees. That in that case, I wouldn't see that as a conflict, but as Justin mentioned, we can check into that.
Hey, Justin, this is Karen Books. I'll just add, I agree. I don't think it would be a conflict of interest, because, I mean, the Ethics Act relates to an individual's monetary gain, for one thing. But I would say that NRCS would probably have to approve those employees participating on the district's work groups.
Yeah,
Thanks.
good point, Karen. Thank you. Looks like Adam said, is there a good way to combine multiple smaller projects to reduce bidding and prevailing wage issues? So you're saying if you had a couple different landowners that want to combine to do a project together, or combine them into one contract? I don't know how that would work.
Well, I'm not sure how it would work either, Justin. I'm just thinking if it was the same type of project that we could bid out as one big project. I just don't know how that would work with the different landowner agreements and the landowner doing the bidding, and it would get kind of complicated, but it might save some time going through 5 different bidding processes. And I just didn't know if there's a way to try to combine that to reduce that burden.
There might be. I know some counties in dirt and gravel would they would bulk bid DSA for a bunch of different projects. So there may be a way to make that work for ACAP as well. I'd have to talk to those counties and see how they do it, and how they come up with that bid. But it might be, yeah, it's something we can talk about if you want to pursue that further. Let's get into it. And I think Erie was one of them that did it for a while there. Maybe I'll give Tom a call and see how he does that, and we can figure out exactly how that would work for us in ACAP. So good question.
Yeah, these are all really good questions. You know, I appreciate everyone's thought, and they're great questions, and we'll keep this for future referencing as we have discussions for consistency.
So my next feedback question, what do you as districts need from the center immediately? Is there any, other than technical assistance and training, is there anything else you need from them in the short term? Forms and money. Yeah, thanks, Chris. I'll take some of that money too while we're spreading it out. But yes, we'll get you those forms and money for sure. The other, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, regarding the forms, I know we've seen draft stuff come out attached to emails and such, but is there, I know you guys were talking about a concise or a location where everything will be updated and kept fresh. Has that launched yet? And if not, is there a way to do maybe a temporary site over on Clean Water Academy that would just, so that we could go there rather than hunting through old emails and making sure we've got the most recent documents that you provided? Or are we in a state yet where everything that's been out is all just draft stuff and you're not wanting us to start using any of it yet?
Our website is up and running, and we will put the forms on that website, and we'll get you a link to it here after the meeting. We'll get you a bunch of the forms are final at this point. The ones that aren't, we won't send to you, but I think the only one left to finalize is that landowner form, the multiple landowner signature form. So we will get you a copy of all the finalized forms that you can run with. And then as we amend them, we'll put them on the website if we need to amend them.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Good question. Has anything happened with the assignment agreement? Can district pay the contractor on behalf of the farmer? Great question, Willie. No, nothing has happened with the assignment agreement yet. That's something we need to research further. I'll put it on my list. Good point. Bring that up again.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Willie. It's been on my mind too to explore that a little bit further.
Are all these webinars recorded and meetings on that website? Yes, they are on the website. And we'll get you that link to the website if you don't have it already. Eric, maybe if you have that handy, can you put it into the chat?
Yeah, I'll get it here.
Thanks, Eric. Any suggestions on webinars for the rest of February or March? I know bidding is high on everybody's list, and that we will definitely, as soon as that's finalized, we will put a good bidding webinar together for you. We do have the Ethics Commission presenting at the next update call, but is there any other topics you'd like us to do? Like in the interim, we can do a webinar before the next March call, or later in March, we can do a webinar. Any ideas or suggestions, by all means, put them in the chat or email me. Appreciate it. Oh, looks like a question came in. If a district holds back some funding for the purpose of amendments to projects, how should this be documented that this money would not be taken if not spent in 2 years? I don't, at this point, I think if you're holding, like you can in your meeting minutes, when you do, if you have like a local board that you're going to use, like your quality assurance board, if you will, put it in the meeting minutes that like, hey, we're keeping a couple dollars back for amendments just in case we need them, or build in, percentages into your budgets, so that we know what your budget looks like and why you're saving some money. That way we know, or send us an email and say, hey, we're reserving X funds just in case we need them for amendments. That way we know what's going on. The more communication we have with you guys, the better off we'll be. So don't hesitate to reach out for anything like that. Keep us updated.
Just to that point, and Justin and I were just talking about this, and Eric, but all funds have to be committed by the end of 2024, which is just around the corner. So probably around July of next year of 2024, we'll be taking a good look at what funds are out there and which ones are committed to projects, and what reshuffling we may need to do at our end to ensure that those funds aren't lost and that they're all committed by that December 31st, 2024 deadline. Just keeping that on your radars.
Yeah, just to clarify, Doug, so they don't get confused, and this happens a lot. Like that money has to be dedicated to a contract by us, not like the district doesn't have to have all their funds dedicated to a contract by end of 24. So don't think you got to go out and have all your projects under contract by end of next year. That's more for us than it is for you guys. So
yeah, no, that's good clarification, Justin. Just to keep in mind though that from our end we'll need to know what's committed.
Yeah, for sure. Yep, looks like Eric put that website link. Oh, yeah,
we'll need we'll need to know what's committed and what you have in the works when it comes down to it. So if you got a lot of projects that you think are coming down the line, I would keep track of those so you have it handy for us to look at.
Okay, any other questions? Eric, Doug, anything else you guys want to cover while we're on the call?
No, just a comment that this was great, first Justin and Eric putting it together, and I think it was very concise, and we're within an hour, and all the questions that you asked, I mean, obviously you're engaged and asking really good questions, so that's encouraging to us, and we really appreciate the participation.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate everybody joining.
The only other thing, just to update the districts, is we did meet with DGS yesterday a little bit, talk about bidding. So that still is in the process. We're still looking for answers for that, but I think the answers will come sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think I can finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's been a long journey, but I think we're coming to a close here. And if they accept our proposal, we're going to keep it pretty simple and streamlined for bidding. So we'll see how it goes with DGS and our waiver, but I'm finally hopeful that we're going to come to a close here pretty soon on it. So it's good to hear. Good to know. Okay, that's all we had on our end. If you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to call Eric or I, or reach out in an email. We'll get you whatever answer we can. So thank you very much for your time, and we'll talk to you again in a month. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.